Today we're going to talk about inspired action. And inspired action is how we get from vision to reality, how we actually move from that high idea and actually bring it into our life in a way that works for us, a way that's tangible. I want to start with looking at that word inspired. I love this word because it actually means to breathe into or to let the breath flow through. It has the very same root in the Latin as the word for spirit. Spirit and inspired, they're the same root word. Spirit is the breath that moves through us. Spiritus. Inspirare is the Latin word for breathing, for inspired. And so this word was originally, when it was first coined, was used to describe that thing that happened when a divine being imparted a truth or an idea to someone, to actually allow that idea to drop into this form that we have, for our soul to catch a glimpse of what that idea is and how we can actually then begin to take action from that inspiration and allow it to create something in our lives. So you often see this symbol around. We have a beautiful one carved by Hoot Peterson on the back of our wall back there, and we have a beautiful stained glass one here by Christine Curtis Wilson, two of our beloved members of our center here that were inspired to create for us. This symbol's been around for probably at least 150 years. It was used in the late 1800s and early 1900s by metaphysicians to talk about the way spirit or the divine or God moved itself into form and how then form returns to spirit. And so you see there are three parts to it there as far as three sections. And the first section is often described as spirit, God, the high idea, the vision, if you will. The middle part is the soul, the part that just does what it does, that is immutable and does not judge what it is. It just acts upon it. And then the bottom part is the effect, what we get from it. So this is our triune nature of spirit here. You might have heard Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in other faith traditions. We call it spirit, soul, and body. The triune nature of the divine. All this together is what our founder, Ernest Holmes, called the creative process. And so you also see that it has a V in there. And so the V on the, let me get my sides right, on the left side, the V, that's spirit moving into form. That's spirit moving into form. We call that involution, spirit moving into form. And then on the right side, you see the V kind of curves up a little bit. That's what we call evolution. That is form moving back into spirit. And so it's a continuous process. That little curve on the V up there is to indicate that it goes on forever. And of course, the circle stands for unity or oneness, that there's only one out there. No matter what's happening, whether it's happening in the soul level, spirit level, soul level, body level, it's all part of the one. And so we call this the creative process. We use it in many of our classes to teach how our spiritual mind treatment works, how we can take a thought, how we can take an idea, how we can take it through this process and change a condition in our lives, bring about something new, or heal something that we've had difficulty with. So how does this apply to vision and reality and that inspired action that goes in between it? So if we add these words to it, in the top section, that's that high idea, the vision, something that has been inspired within us, something that has been dropped into place. We have a spiritual practice called visioning, where we catch a glimpse of Spirit's high idea for whatever our lives or a project we're working on, or just visioning for general guidance. And then we have the middle section, the inspired action. And when we take vision into inspired action, we get our reality. We get the effect that we're looking for there. And so I want to spend time today talking about that soul level. We don't often talk about what happens in that one. We often talk about the high idea, and we often talk about the effects, what we're experiencing in the world. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about how that happens. And so let's take a look at the characteristics of the soul. The soul, that middle section where inspired action happens. It is impersonal and neutral. In other words, it's not going to judge anything that happens there. It is not going to have a desire for one way or the other. What we put into that part of the creative process, it's acted upon just the way anything else is acted upon. We often talk about this creative process in terms of seed, soil, and plant, where the seed is the high idea. The soil is that immutable part that just does what it does, impersonal and neutral, and then the plant is the result that we get. So if you think about soil, if I have a pot with soil in it, I can put a tomato seed in there. I could put an orange seed in there. I could put a grape seed in there. I could put alfalfa seed in there, whatever I want to put in there. And what's the soil going to do? It doesn't care what seed it is, does it? Doesn't matter one bit whatsoever. The soil's going to do what it's going to do to the seed. Right? It's going to grow. It's going to let it germinate. It's going to let it sprout. It's going to let it come out into a plant. Now, here's the thing. There are things that we can do to that soil to make it more likely for that plant to grow, right? If I put a seed in the soil and I don't add any water, am I going to get very good results? Not likely. If I have a soil that's full of toxic chemicals and rocks and sticks and weeds, and I plant a seed in that, is it going to grow very well? No. So we can do things to improve the condition of the soil, just like we can do things to improve the condition of our soul. We have our spiritual practices that we use to help us clear out all of those weeds and rocks and sticks and things that have been accumulated over our lifetime. We have spiritual practices that allow us to add wonderful nutrients to our soil. We have our visioning process, which I spoke of earlier. We have our spiritual mind treatment. We have meditation, which allows us to commune with that divine presence and actually catch a glimpse of what's happening here for us. We have all of these practices that we can use to clean up that soil. But again, the soil is impersonal and neutral. Our action changes what happens to it. The soul is also automatic and lawful. It follows very standard laws. It's going to do what it does. When we put something in there, it's going to make it grow. The seed, when we put the seed in there and all the conditions are good for it, it's going to grow. The soul is also creative and unlimited. There is no boundary on what we can possibly bring into our life. The only limitation that's ever put upon us are the ones we put upon ourselves. The only thing that would ever inhibit the growth of that seed in our experience is what we are doing to ourselves. That's the good news and the bad news. So, what is the work of the soul then? What is the work of it that we have to do? So the soul receives that impress of spirit. It catches a glimpse of that vision. It has that thought, that idea, that seed. It receives it. It takes those thoughts and beliefs and emotions that we impress upon it, whether we're doing so consciously or unconsciously. And that's again where our spiritual practices come in. What are the things that we are allowing into our experience that we're not even aware of? Are we letting what other people say or do around us influence what we're bringing into our lives? We are our own guardian of what comes into our consciousness. And so it's always on us to pay attention to what it is what thoughts we're having, what emotions are being triggered within us, where we're believing in something, whether it's a hidden belief that we're not really conscious of, or whether it's one of those internalized beliefs that we've had forever and ever and ever, and we've never taken the time to examine it. Always we have an opportunity to look at what's coming into our consciousness. And so then it processes and acts upon the thoughts. So it takes what we are bringing in, and it does what it does with it, processes it according to those laws, according to that neutral stance upon it, and it just does what it does. It acts upon it. And then it allows whatever thought has been placed in it to manifest into form. And so the soul translates our experiences of thought, our thought experiences, into our reality based on the mental patterns that we're holding true. Based on what our beliefs are, that's what our experience becomes. And so we always have an opportunity, again, to look at our thoughts, look at our belief systems. If we are having beliefs over and over and over again of things like lack or sickness or feeling unloved, if we're having those feelings over and over again, this is our opportunity to look at them, to examine them. Not beat ourselves up because we're having them, because that doesn't do us any good. That just keeps us in the problem. But to look at that and say, why am I thinking that? What's behind that? I have a friend who was a mentor for many, many years. And when I would get in one of those thought patterns, I'm sure most of you have experienced those, where that loop of negative thinking, she'd look at me in the very sweetest way and she'd say to me, "Is that true, honey?" Really, because we tell ourselves these things, but they're not true. There's something that it may be what our experience is right now, but it is not the truth of our being. As I said at the beginning, you are a freaking miracle. You are amazing. A tiny spark of God consciousness embedded itself in you. How could there be anything wrong? That isn't a miracle happening right here, right now, every single moment of our lives. We are a living, breathing, walking miracle. So is that true, honey? If I'm thinking badly about myself, I'm being my own worst enemy there. No, I don't need anybody else around criticizing me. I got all that down pat. I can do that for myself. Begin to look at what we're thinking and begin to actually ask ourselves, is that true? If I think I must live in poverty, is that true? I see abundance all around me. Why would I think I needed to experience lack and limitation right now? Begin to look at our beliefs and see what it is we are thinking. And so how we do this, working with the soul, is we consciously choose our thoughts. We consciously choose our thoughts. That beautiful affirmation that Clay T wrote this morning is a conscious choice to believe in a power for good. It is a conscious choice to allow it to live through us. Freedom, justice, beautiful thoughts, love, prosperity, amazing thoughts that we're having. Consciously choosing those thoughts. And then let our spiritual practices help us begin to realize those thoughts. Realize the effect of that. Realize that we are absolutely an amazing specimen of God right here on earth. Actually begin to use our practices where we commune with Spirit, where we sit in contemplation and meditation, and we allow ourselves to feel the flow, that inspiration, the breath of God moving through us. Allow ourselves to feel that when we're sitting communing with Spirit. Do our spiritual mind treatment, our prayer, our affirmative prayer. How many of you have ever heard affirmative prayer and had chills? It's so powerful. It is so powerful to hear those words of truth expressed about a situation or about yourself, or to express them for yourself. There are times when I stand here and the tears flow, simply because I'm allowing Spirit to move through me, and I can't help but be overwhelmed, because the power of it is so miraculous. Use our spiritual practices. If you haven't experienced our spiritual practices, check out our YouTube channel. If you want to do it on your own, there are thousands of meditations on there. Our practitioners will guide you through all kinds of topics that will help you get a clearer sense of things. Come and take our classes. Our classes are all about the spiritual practices. Come to our services and our special events that we have, where we actually do the practices. Every time we have a 5th Sunday in the month, we do what we call a workshop Sunday. And a workshop Sunday is all about spiritual practices. You're going to want to be at the next one. It's March 30th, and it's all about prosperity. So trust me, you're going to want to be there for that one. Find a way to engage in spiritual practice. It is so powerful when you do it with others, but it's absolutely wonderful if you do it by yourself too. But find a way to do those spiritual practices that we have. And then that last one, let go and trust. I had this week one of those aha moments. Sometimes we call them a 2x4 moment, where you feel like you've been struck upside the head, right? So I've been at this for 20 years now. Spiritual practices, study. I spent 11 years going from being a practitioner to a minister. That's a lot of study. I really worked on myself a lot, and I have opened myself up to be a place where God flows through. I do it. I am actually committed to it. I do it all the time. I have taken on for myself every single bit of responsibility for my spiritual growth. But I forgot one thing. I forgot to assume that God's going to do what God does. And that was an awakening for me. When I realized I didn't actually trust God to do what God does. I was trusting myself to be that vessel through which God shows up. And I was having miraculous and wonderful things happen in my life because of it. But when I realized I wasn't putting any responsibility on God, that felt to me like, who am I to ask God to be responsible for my life? Who am I to ask? Who am I to think that God has any part in this? This is about me being in service to this greater idea. And when I realized I didn't trust God to do its part, I realized there was something lacking. So I've been reading Emma Curtis Hopkins lately. She is what we call the teacher of teachers. Ernest Holmes, our founder, studied with her in the 1920s. She came from a Christian Science background. She actually used to be the editor of the Christian Science Monitor, which is one of the oldest published newspapers in the, maybe it's a magazine, I'm not sure. Anyway, one of the oldest published articles in the United States. And she broke away from Christian Science because of some of the dogma that Mary Baker Eddy was imposing on people, and it couldn't be any other way but this way. And Emma said, no, there's something more out here. But anyway, Emma talks about the mystical marriage. Emma talks about the mystical marriage, about how we are in relationship with Spirit. So if you think about a marriage you might have, or a partnership, or just somebody that you count on in your life, there are things that that person assumes you're going to do, right? And there are things that you assume the other person's going to do. So for instance, one of you may really like to cook, so your partner might assume you're going to do the food. And the other one may be neat and tidy and organized, and you're going to assume they're going to do the cleaning. Really worked for me. Right, Justin? We make assumptions when we're in relationship. When we're in partnership with someone else, we make assumptions. I realized I wasn't assuming God was going to do anything other than move through me. But I took all the responsibility onto myself. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, there's a good for me, and I ought to have it. There is a good for me, and I ought to have it. Now, the word ought kind of bothered me a little bit because on the tail of hearing that, I would hear, yeah, I ought to have it, but I don't. So I looked up the word ought. The word ought, in its original use, meant to expect. Now, if I shift that sentence around, there's a good for me, and I expect to have it. Now, I feel that. I can feel that. So if I am aligning myself with, let's just take one issue. Let's just take the issue of prosperity. If I'm aligning myself with prosperity, I am entering into that law of circulation, right? I'm giving, and I forget the second part. What's the second part? Receiving. So I'm giving. I forgot the partnership where I can receive. I forgot to assume or to expect that God was going to give back, that the flow was going to come into me as well. And it was quite a shocking realization for me, which meant to me that I needed to work on my trust in Spirit. To work on my trust that God itself is actually looking for a place to show up. I've said it before. The place on which I stand is holy ground, for God is there. I know that. I feel that. I can feel it when I say it. I've experienced it. But I don't always trust it. I don't always trust that Spirit is actually going to come through. And so for me, this has been quite a week. It's really been working through me. I'm not really sure I'm there yet, but I do know where my work is. My work is expecting the good to come into my life. My work in the past has been to show up, to be that place that it shows up through, and then watch the results. And I've had wonderful results, but I'm wondering how much better I can have when I really trust in Spirit. And so my work is in that level of the trust. Spirit is going to do what it does. Spirit is always looking for a place to show up. Do I trust it to show up through me? Do I trust it to show up in my experience? Can I take that vision, that high and holy idea that I have for my life, and trust that Spirit's going to deliver it? My work is in the soul. My work is in that middle level of letting go and trusting that Spirit will move through me, just the way that my thoughts are bringing into my experience here. And so we do this by consciously choosing thoughts that align with our desired reality. Consciously choosing our thoughts, that's the first thing. Look at what you're thinking. Look at what's happening. Then use affirmative prayer, visualization, all of our spiritual practices to refine our beliefs. And trust and let go that the law is working and that it will happen naturally. So this faith, it's allowing Spirit to do what Spirit does. Spirit is infinite, abundant, never ending, and it is always, always, always creating. So why not let it create through each one of us? It knows how to bring that good that Emma talked about into my experience. Let go of our doubt and control. Faith means trusting, not micromanaging. Anybody ever guilty of that? Yeah, I have trust that it's going to happen this way, but let me just make sure it's this and this and this and this and this, right? Micromanaging, if we go back to our seed soil plant analogy, micromanaging is planting the seed in the soil and 2 days later digging up the soil to see if the plant's done anything yet. In case you weren't sure what micromanaging was, there you go. It's also aligning with the creative process. It's aligning ourselves with this symbol here, this wonderful Science of Mind symbol that we have here. Faith is an inner knowing that Spirit operates through the law of mind to bring thoughts into form. And it's more than knowing. Inner knowing. In other words, we trust and believe it. It is so cemented within us that we have no doubts about it. And instead of worrying or doubting or micromanaging, expect good. Speak affirmatively, and then take inspired action. Listen to what's moving through us. Take action that is in alignment with the desire that we wish to see. Take action. And the last thing, again, is that whole letting go. Releasing those things that are holding us back. Releasing those hidden beliefs. Releasing those thoughts that I got to do it myself. Releasing that. And then allowing ourselves to receive. When we allow Spirit to do what it does naturally, we open ourselves up to greater possibilities and marvelous, unexpected blessings. Who isn't in for some of that? So faith, in essence, is cooperating with the divine creative process, allowing Spirit to express effortlessly through us without interference, doubt, or fear. Fear. How do we get rid of that fear? Ernest Holmes says that doubt is faith in the wrong direction. I love that. Doubt is faith in the wrong direction. And fear is a sign that you are stepping into something bigger than you thought. Now that shifts it around a lot for me. The idea that that fear that I'm feeling is just me, that part of me that is spirit, taking a great step forward and allowing myself to experience something bigger than I could have even imagined. Ernest Holmes says this many times, there's a power for good in the universe and you can use it. And it uses you. And it is a reciprocal relationship. I have to be willing to use it myself. As willing as I am to allow it to use me, I have to be as willing to use it myself. Finish up with this quote here from Ernest. When we realize that we are dealing with an infinite power which has no limitation and no desire other than our good, doubt and fear disappear. So our work is always to look for those things that are blocking us from realizing that the good is available to us and we ought to have it. We ought to have it, and opening ourselves up to be that channel through which it flows. All right, let's take this into prayer. I invite our practitioners to stand and surround us. Our practitioners are wonderful individuals who know truth. If you're stuck on anything and you can't figure it out for yourself, I so encourage you to see one of our practitioners. They can get to what those hidden beliefs are. And they can identify the good and know for you that it is yours and it is happening right now. And so we just take a moment here and settle ourselves into our seats, feeling that impress of spirit as we breathe in, knowing that it fills our lungs, moves through our bodies, enlivens every cell, and then exhales itself out into expression as our good. So I know that right here and right now, there is only this one power, one presence, one divine creative love intelligence, one entity, one being, one divine love that is so powerful that it could do nothing but create. And create it did, create everything. Think of all of the billions and billions of people that have inhabited this world and all of the worlds beyond this. This limitlessness of spirit is unimaginable and yet so very present. Because I know that there is only one, I know that I am one with it. That the power and the presence of this creative intelligence resides right at the heart of my being. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for everyone. For I know we are all that perfect emanation of a love so powerful it could do nothing else but create. And create in magnificent miracles. And so knowing this truth, I speak my word here and now. I know that the power and the presence of the One is moving through each one of us. It is showing up as us. And at every moment, we have an opportunity to listen deeper, to go within, to trust, to let go of fear and doubt and resistance, and open ourselves up to being that place where God shows up. I know that each one of us is on a spiritual journey, an ever higher evolution of our souls. I know that each one of us has been brought to this time and this place to experience life as only we can. For we are the place where God shows up. And And so right now, I just speak my blessing for each and every one of us, knowing that we are on this ever-evolving upward path of evolution, that it is unfolding itself as peace and harmony and health and abundance. I also know that this same evolutionary force is moving through us, stabilizing our world right now. I know that this very same force is in the hearts of every politician. It is in the hearts of every elected leader of our country. It is the mind that created this that is moving through each and every individual, bringing itself into perfect harmony and balance, creating a just world. And I also want to speak a blessing to the marvelous Pope Francis, knowing that the divine is enlivening every cell in his body, and that all congestion or inaction is removed from his experience right now, and that perfect health and well-being is his, just like it is everyone's. And so I just give great thanks for this knowing. I'm so grateful to feel it. I'm so grateful to experience it. I'm so grateful to see it happening all over this world. And I release this word into that power that says only yes, that knows no lack or limitation, that is constantly looking for a vessel to show up as. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.